Hey Alice, how's it going?
Hi, Reid. Yeah, really good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, enjoying a continuously getting sunnier and sunnier days here in Washington. And you're I think you
Yeah,
you
it's
mentioned you're
fantastic.
right outside of or close to like Mount Beauty down in Australia right now on your all of the travels that you're doing, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, so very feeling very fortunate at the moment to be able to travel in Victoria and yeah, living the regional life for the next 6 months or so. So loving it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I think you're basically just popping between like Airbnbs about once a month and just traveling around while you have the kind of the ability to work fully remote, yeah?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm based in Australia, and Australia we're doing
Hmm.
like fortunately really well with the COVID pandemic, but things are still locked down quite a lot. So it's not really too many in-person events just yet. So really, like while we can work remotely, definitely trying to take advantage of it. No, that's really cool. Like it's a nice lifestyle. I like it.
Yeah, and I don't know if you're up to speed at all with Paul Turley, who's another MVP. He's down in Vancouver, Washington, but he recently just sold his house and he bought an RV. And now, like, I think COVID might partially helped, but he's just basically just going to work remote and just travel around the country in
Yeah,
his
that's
RV for the
awesome.
next couple of years. So I've known a few people who've done that, who've gone fully remote and just basically gone mobile and just kind of hop from place to place, either through Airbnbs and rentals, or in this case, the US, just getting a large RV and having your home come with you.
Yeah, I guess all we need, like working in Power BI, you just need a really good internet connection. So that's been our biggest requirement when we're having a look for different Airbnbs across regional Victoria, just making sure it's got a solid Wi-Fi connection. But other than that, like,
Exactly.
yeah, all you need is your laptop. We're actually transporting like a full kind of work setup. I've got two monitors, a full work desk, and a work chair, all in a tiny Mazda 3. So
There you go. Yep. And the only other thing I would say is just a CPU that at least has 16 gigs of RAM in your set.
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Definitely.
So, okay. Oh yeah, I think you're good. Again, it crackled up just a little bit, but the feed's coming through clearly again. But yeah, I'll
Yeah.
just for a background, I'll let you chime in a second. But we've kind of known each other for a couple of years through the MVP circuit and everything. And I think initially, and with the topic that we're even covering today, honestly, like a lot of the work that you've done with environmental stuff often involves geographical data, and so you've kind of I think very much specialized yourself in kind of being one of the people I certainly, on my short list go to for any kind of thoughts or opinions on mapping and stuff and just the maps that are available in Power BI. And I know that list every 6 to 12 months grows, especially like last year with the introduction of Azure Maps. So like that's something I'm really kind of excited to go over with you today and just to see some of the features that are available as far as either what visual it is or even some of the things you can do with a lot of the custom visuals that are available in the marketplace. But for people who are in the chat who aren't familiar with you, do you want to give a little background about yourself and kind of the stuff that you do?
Yeah, no, definitely. So a little bit about myself. I haven't always been involved in Power BI, so literally probably last couple of years or so. I'm actually an environmental engineer, so I previously worked for about 8 years, specializing in surface water and groundwater modeling. So completely different industry. But during that time, like I worked a lot with data. I was doing a lot of programming, things like that to process huge amounts of modeling output. Did a lot of spatial analysis because, as you mentioned,
Okay, yeah.
work in the environmental industry. We have a lot of spatial data. And then, very lucky, I kind of just fell into Power BI. I was working with our digital innovation team. They introduced me to this product. I was like, wow, it's amazing. So I decided to quit my job and start up my own consultancy with my husband, Christian, who's also an environmental engineer.
That's awesome.
So we run DiscoverEI. So we've been doing it for a couple of years now. And it's been a lot of fun. So we really specialize in Power BI for the environmental and water industries. So we work a lot with government agencies and different water corporations, things like that here in Australia. Also run a lot of custom Power BI training specifically for
Mm.
the water and environmental industry. And we also do a little bit of graphic design as well. So we have an amazing designer on our team, Renat, And yeah, we also work with Daniel Marsh-Patrick a lot. So he's another MVP based out of New Zealand. So no, we're loving it.
And just for a quick bit of context for people tuning in, Daniel Marsh Patrick does a lot of work with custom visuals. He's honestly my go-to person when it comes to building them. Also using Shorticulator, and then uh, I need to know how to pronounce this correctly. It's the Danube. What's the
Deneb?
new the Danube custom thing that he just released, which is a
Yeah, so
similar to
Deneb.
Shorticulator, the Danube custom visual. So he has a lot of cool stuff. If you check my live stream history, there is also a video that I have with him demoing that, and he'll actually be coming on hopefully in the next. I think he's scheduled in about 4 to 5 weeks from now, and he's going to be actually demoing his Dead custom visual. So just as a quick mention of that. But to your points though on environmental and water information, it's one of those fields that I wouldn't have thought it's would be like, I guess there'd be enough diversity to actually have trainings and all this other stuff. But I would imagine in Australia and certainly other places, it's probably one of those resources that probably has a lot of eyes and attention on it. So it's great that you could actually build it in kind of an entire business model around like that as a industry specialty. Because I guess I just never thought about it much, but I think my first thought wouldn't have been it is as large as it appears to be, considering the work that you've done with it.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're lucky, or we're not really lucky in Australia. Australia, water is a really big issue. So we have a lot of droughts,
Exactly,
we have
yeah.
bushfires, we have floods. And you can see here just some of, I don't know if you're showing my screen, but
Yep,
I'll show you soon. We've got
I can switch
19
over.
water corps across. Yeah, okay. So here's
Yeah.
a couple of maps which we'll chat through today. But just having a look at this map here, maybe the icon map, that's the coolest. We've got 19 different water corps across just Victoria alone. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
a lot of people out there who are dealing with a lot of data. So water is a massive issue. It's highly regulated in Australia, not just for supply and demand, but also environmental flows, traditional flows. We've got a lot of irrigation, especially along the Murray. So there's a ton of data, and we're monitoring it using like real-time monitoring devices. So you can imagine all this data coming in. It's extremely messy. We have to clean it up, but also present it in a way that people can understand and use effectively to make
Hmm.
decisions. So there's a lot we could be doing in this space, and it's a really growing industry. I think it's really exciting.
Yeah, and I think you just hit the nail on the head when it's becoming unfortunately more and more important as we progress forward, both in Australia and then I mean being on the West Coast. Uh, we actually trade resources when it comes to Australia and the West Coast a lot in terms of firemen. There have been times where we've had bad fires bad enough that firemen have been flown from Australia to help put out ours, and I believe we've also sent firemen from either Washington, Oregon, and California down to Australia is similarly to help with the brush fires when they've had down there. So we both definitely have a somewhat commiserate in the issues that we've been experiencing, but also just the how much more important water conservation is.
Yeah, no, definitely. So it is a very important issue, I think, everywhere in the world. And the
Yeah.
more data we have, the better we can manage it using tools like Power BI. Then it will
Hmm.
be kind of better for everyone in the long run.
Exactly. Yeah, I just love the breakouts that you have here just to show essentially the same data, but kind of skinned across different maps to see the feature sets within each of them.
Yeah, no, definitely. So we've got these are probably my top 6 maps that I use the most. I will caveat I haven't really used Azure Map too much at all, just for demos. But we'll go through just very quickly a couple of the mapping options that we have in Power BI. So we've
Awesome.
got the standard map. So we've got literally like just a point map. This is probably the map which everyone would get started with if you are wanting to display some spatial data in Power
Hmm.
BI. It's really, really easy. You can see we can just literally visualize points on a map with longitude and latitudes. We can also display cool things like map labels. So this is something that not many of the mapping visuals allow you to be able to do. Because it's a standard map, it supports things like report page tooltips, which is a really good feature. I love that feature. It's super easy to use. Some of the cons is you can't have any custom base layers.
Yeah.
So you can't provide your own kind of base maps and no custom icons on this one. As you'll see, Icon Map has some really cool features with it. So I'm
I
just going to
do.
quickly go through. Oh
I
yeah.
was just going to say I do love the recent addition of this of the selection lasso. That was one of those things that for so long, both on this and the scatter plot, like it makes it so easy to select 20 to 30 items and then filter other items in the page. Like it's one of those like why wasn't this
Definitely.
there day one? But it is a very welcome addition for a lot of the native visuals to be able to do that now.
Yeah, and especially with maps. I think before it was quite challenging to select. You'd have to rely on slices or using kind of
Yep,
control, but this just opens up so many opportunities. And the
exactly.
lasso select, that's a feature on lots of the mapping custom visuals. So it's really great to see some of the standard visuals having this effect as well. So I'll just quickly go through some of the kind of more simple maps. I'm not going to demo how to create these because this is a mapping masterclass. We want to get into the really kind of fun mapping visuals and show those uh, all the cool things we can do with that.
Exactly.
So the next map that I use quite often is the field map. So we'll just have a look here, select this. It's right next to the default map. And again, this is a really simple map. So that's one of its big pluses. If you're wanting to visualize kind of heat maps across different countries, then it's a really great option for you. You can just out of the box drag in your country name and visualize it that way. A couple of things to be aware of if you are using the field map is by default, the field color is not transparent. So I'm not quite sure what the reasoning is for this because then you
Hmm.
lose things like the country labels. But we got
Yeah.
around it here using a workaround just with conditional formatting with some data colors and including transparency in it that way.
And I think the only way, at least it used to be when I did a video on this a couple of years ago, but you can, if you have a measure with the hex code in it, that can include the extra characters allowed for transparency. Basically, as my
Exactly.
understanding is, anything in there, you can basically create the gradient of 0 to 100%, but you can't actually type it in like a rule set. You can't say create a rule and add it there. It has to be put into a measure. Is that still the case where that's the only way to add the
Yeah,
transparency? Okay,
definitely, and that's what we've done here, and that works quite nicely, but it's a
perfect.
little bit more challenging. So just something to be aware of if you are using the field map. The next one is the shape map, and I really quite like the shape map. The shape map allows us to bring in custom boundaries, so custom polygons here. Here you can see we've got different water corporations across Victoria. And that's really cool because in one of the custom standard mapping options in Power BI, this is something you can't do too much in other visuals. So we can bring in our own custom mapping option as a GeoJSON file and bring it in to the shapes dialog here. And this is a really nice map to display known regions. So you can see it doesn't have a base layer here. So you're really relying on your end user to know what these regions represent. But I like to use it as things like kind of like an insert into a larger map. So you could imagine if we had a map of Australia, you could see the different states highlighted and things like that.
Okay. Do you layer them on
So it
top of each
is,
other or?
yeah, you can layer it on top of each other. So
Okay.
with the maintain layer order feature, that's a
Mm-hmm.
really cool thing for you to do. So like we layer different legends on top, and I've done this
Yeah.
where you
Okay.
make this map kind of really small, turn off the title, have a bigger, more detailed map underneath, and then you could use
Ah.
it
Okay.
almost as a selection here so that you could kind of toggle into different areas or highlight where we are looking in Australia as well.
I like that. Yeah. It's I've seen it deployed in other places. Kind of you miniaturize the visual and then the with the shapes really it just like you said becomes a filter selection.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it is, it's a super simple map. It's really nice and easy to use and intuitive for people if they know what the areas represent. So the next one I want to quickly show you is the Azure Map. So this is like the new kid on the block when it comes to mapping. This was released last year. You can see up here it's another core visual. And I'm showing it in a really simple form here. All we're doing is plotting longitude and latitude of different reservoir locations across Victoria. We've got a size component to show kind of how big these bubbles are. And one really cool feature about the Azure Map is we can include a reference layer here. So here I've included a reference layer to show the boundaries of different watercorps across Victoria. But just note that this reference layer, it's not interactive. So it's just like you're adding a base layer onto your map. So we can't actually interact with that data. We can only interact with the points. So it's nice if you want to have a quick reference, but if you actually want to interact with these polygons, your custom polygons, then we'll have to have a look at something like Icon Map or MapBox.
Exactly.
And I have experienced a few kind of performance issues with the Azure Map just in giving demos. It is quite a bit slower to render compared to some of the other mapping visuals. But I think definitely watch this space. I haven't invested much time and effort at all in having a look at it. You can do kind of 3D extrusions with it, which is kind of cool. It's great if you wanted to map kind of traffic. They have live APIs to show incidents and traffic control. But for my industry, it's not really quite there yet, I don't think.
I did have a quick question just on some layering and stuff that I wanted to pop in. So we have a question from Ajit. Do you have a method to visualize link shapefiles, kind of like the link heat maps in ArcGIS?
A link shapefile, like a link heat map. I'm not quite sure what a link shapefile or a link heat map is.
Looks like he has one follow-up that's in here. He says it's basically heat maps for roadways.
Heat map for roadways.
So that's kind of like what Azure Azure Map that does then, because it would show you like the where you have the green and red for high traffic versus low traffic areas.
Yeah, definitely. So I reckon, so I think ArcGIS Map as well would. So here we can see we could turn on the incidents. You can show traffic control. So you really do need to have data coming in. If it is kind of live data, use one of these maps which has it kind of out of the box. Otherwise, you could create your own layers. I would recommend using something like Icon Map. So Icon Map is a map which allows us to combine points, lines, and polygons all on the same map. So I think that in Power BI, this is the only map that can combine those three different kind of custom options in the same platform, and we can see them all in the same layer. So I think if you're looking to create something like that, then I would recommend having a look at Icon Map, as long as you have your own kind of lines or the polygons with the data coming in that you want to display on the heat map, because Icon Map, it has a ton of formatting options as well. So we can change the color, the style of the lines. We can bring in conditional formatting for regions and fill. There's heaps of customization you can do. So if you're looking to create some custom mapping layer like that and not use out-of-the-box features, then I'd probably recommend looking at Icon Map. That would be your best bet.
Yeah, like you said, it has a high degree of customization that you're able to do on this one. I've only scratched the surface on it. I've played with it a couple times, but unlike you, who swims in geographical data, a lot of the clients that I have, we usually have more like scorecards and other stuff. So I've been waiting for the opportunity to really actually dig my hands into either the Icon or the MapBox one yet. But I need to find a client that has data that needs to be mapped to one of those.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's what I thought. I think that everyone's probably had a bit of a play around with the standard maps in Power BI. So I want to do a bit of a deep dive on Icon Map and MapBox, just to go through a couple of demos, just to show people, because they are a little bit complex to configure if you're doing it for the first time. There's a lot of different hoops you have to jump through just to get a visual rendering. So that's what we're going to go through today. But just before we do that, I just wanted to show a couple of kind of real-world examples of how we use maps at DiscoverEI for visualizing environmental data. So I've got two different examples, which are two public-facing dashboards that we've worked on. and where maps are hero visuals of these two studies. So the first is this COVID-19 Water Security Risk Index. So this is a study which we worked on in collaboration with the International Water Centre and the Australian Water Partnership mid last year, in kind of the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this index is really to help visualize the risks to countries across the Asia Pacific region when it comes to COVID-19 through the lens of water. So things like access to safe and clean water for sanitation and hand washing in the home, but also their ability to treat and immunize and recover and contain outbreaks when they hit. And to visualize this kind of data, we've got two main maps that we're using. So we're using the very simple field map here. This allows us just very easily to bring the data in for each of the countries. We can conditionally format the color so that we can kind of see the risk involved for different risk factors that we're assessing. And because it's a native visual, it has support for things like report page tooltips as well, which we're using here just to provide a bit of extra info.
What is the little custom visual that you're using within the tooltip, out of curiosity?
Oh yeah, so this is I think it's called like a radar chart.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. Yeah.
This shows like a kind of the degree of different. These are our temporal risk factors that we're evaluating. You can see kind of on a nice visual all together which factors are highest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we can see here that that the ability to immunize is probably the highest risk.
And you've shown a couple of custom visuals at this point, and Anthony had actually just a good question. Considering that these are not standard visuals, paraphrased, they're custom visuals from the custom visual store. Have you ever had any issues with them? I personally have not. I know you've worked with a lot more with them. I just will say, from a high level perspective, typically the visuals that you get out of the custom visual store, at least as far as security or any other risks, have been vetted by Microsoft. They might not necessarily perform fast, but they, I know some people are a little iffy on custom visuals on whether or not it's leaking data or anything, and anything that you get from the Microsoft Custom Visual Store is safe to use as far as that goes. But performance, maybe there's a question that you could ask: has there ever been any hiccups or odd things that you've experienced by using them?
Yeah, so performance is a big issue. You have to try not to include too many custom visuals on your report page because they are a bit slower to render. One thing which I did experience was with the CloudScope visual. So last year, I think it was in the middle of last year, they deprecated one of their visuals for hosting images, but then they brought it back online as a certified and an uncertified version. So that actually broke quite a few of our Power BI reports. You can easily go back and fix it. But if any of those are public for an external client, then that's a bit of a risk. So it's just making sure that you know those caveats. Those visuals aren't supported by Microsoft. They might not be supported by the visual authors. And they might change the visual after you've already deployed it to your report. And it might have unexpected impacts. A couple of other ones like MapBox, just be aware that they don't always render the same on everyone's computer. So MapBox, it does get interrupted by things like antivirus protection software, and it won't render on Internet Explorer.
Interesting. So that's the caveats that I wouldn't have actually thought about. It almost reminds me a bit of like if you ever have like an emoji in titles or anything else, it changes slightly depending on the device, Android, Windows, Mac, and etc. But that's good to know that MapBox, similarly, depending on the computer running it, it's either a permissions or a compatibility issue that it might encounter. Hopefully nobody's still running Internet Explorer today, but you never know.
Yeah. We work a lot with government, and that is unfortunately one of their defaults. So it's changing. But yeah, you can't rely on it, especially if you're creating public tools with Power BI.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this is just another example of one of the maps in here. We use the point map in this case just because we're visualizing the Pacific Islands, and some of these are really, really tiny. You can see just how small they are. So you have to think about that as well when you're mapping. If we were to display these on the field map, they would just be lost. You wouldn't be able to see them as well. So there are a couple of options of mapping just for just kind of the out of the box, what you can get in Power BI. You can still make some really cool maps. But having a look at some of the kind of more custom visuals. So we're going to have a look at icon map here. This is an example. This was just published last week. We were working with the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning to help them visualize the Victorian water grid. So this is our network of rivers, kind of pipes and reservoirs for transporting water across Victoria. And we've got a series of different Power BI kind of reports here, just exploring different components of our water cycle and how the grid can help to kind of alleviate that. And this is an example here of more of an infographic style map. So when we're thinking about maps, it doesn't always have to be using an actual geo-reference mapping option. Here we've created more of an infographic style map using Synoptic Panel. So this is another custom visual. And you can see that it is really nice. You can interact with different components on the map, filter the data, and things like that. So if you're developing tools for public communication, maybe a geo-reference map doesn't always have to be the option. You could include more kind of infographic styles. But you can see majority of the pages.
I didn't realize you could actually have it kind of mapped to the lines and everything. I knew you could have quadrants in the Synoptic Panel, but it's been probably a couple of years since I've used it. It came out probably, 2017? It was quite a few years back that it was released, and it's still, this is probably one of the cooler ones that I've seen mapped to it. I really like this.
Yeah, no, thank you. Well, this one, you can use the Synoptic Designer. So this is OKViz's online tool for creating these. But you can also, all it is it's a base 64 image with SVG overlaid on top. So we actually did this all in Adobe Illustrator because we do design as well. Yep. So you can create it there, and then you can get much finer control over it. So everything is kind of mapped perfectly. And the kind of production process, we had a lot of iterations here. Lots of people adding new kind of pipes as we went throughout the project. It was much easier to update that way. So you can see maps are a feature of pretty much all of these report pages, but this one I just want to highlight here. This is how we can visualize environmental data across Victoria using the icon map. So you can see that it's really cool. We can have both polygons and icons on the same map. Here we're using an icon to visualize different kind of water bodies of interest. We can have report page tooltips here just to pop up what different environmental features we're protecting. And it's a really nice kind of option for displaying this data as well. So there are a couple of real world examples. Just before we dive into the kind of two big demos, were there any other questions from any of the audience, Reid? Or?
I'm trying to see. I passed most of them through. There was one by Leslie about whether or not the visuals would render in a browser, but you immediately answered it at the time. And otherwise, just people are really enjoying this, and they like to be able to see kind of Power BI used for good in the sense of progressing forward. Something as important as water conservation and other stuff. So it's the real world applications seem to be definitely resonating with people.
Yeah, cool. I think it's always important we're lucky in the environmental space. A lot of our data is publicly available, and our clients want to get it out there. So we do have a lot of real world examples that we can share. But yeah, it does make a difference when you're using this data for a really good purpose. Makes it a lot more meaningful for us, I think.
And I did have one question from Steven. So what is the best for using multiple layers, points, and polygons? I would imagine that would be the potentially MapBox, but if not, the icon map, because I know that has the most diversity in layering, yeah?
Definitely icon map. So we'll show you in a minute what MapBox can do. So MapBox is great if you just want points or if you just want kind of polygons. But I think if we want them all together, so here we've got an example of different MapBox options. We've got polygons here where we can do like really cool kind of drill down effects. We also have pseudo lines. These are just buffered polygons here. And we have points, but we can't combine them all together on the same map. And that's where icon map really comes into it. But I think MapBox definitely has a place. I loved MapBox as soon as I saw it. It's a really slick and very impressive kind of mapping tool. It has nice auto zoom features, so it's really cool. So I'm going to take you through a quick demo if you've never used MapBox before, just how to get started and a few things of what it can do. So here we've got oh, yeah,
I was just going to say, I had one quick question that we can bring up again at the end, but Anthony would love to know if we can get some good resources for publicly available environmental data of any kind, like data sets that they could possibly even play around with for some of this stuff. So something we can bring up at the end. But yeah, I think a lot of people are probably seeing this like, man, I'd love to be able to play around with the waterways and the and any kind of the mapping data that's in here. And I would assume some of this is publicly available.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, this is actually synthetic. We made this data up. This is from one of our training courses.
Oh, nice.
We built this together. But a lot of our examples we can get, we got a lot of our data from data.vic. So that's Victoria's open data kind of spatial data. So that's just for Victoria. I know that Microsoft has some data sets out there, kind of more sustainability focused, things like that. There's a lot of different options that you can go to. I think the World Bank actually has a really good resource of a lot of different kind of publicly available data sets, not just for water and the environment, but also for lots of other components if you wanted to use data for good as well.
I'm dropping both those links actually right now into the chat, so we're good.
Awesome. Cool. No, it is good to have nice data sets to play with. Makes it a lot more fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this report, as I mentioned, this is all synthetic data, so don't read too much into it. But it's a report visualizing the average customer satisfaction score for waterways across Greater Melbourne. And we've got this map down here. We want this map to be our hero visual. And we've got these points. These points are representing different postcodes across Victoria. And their size here is just based on the average customer satisfaction score.
Okay.
So as you can see at the moment, it's not really a great map. It's we've got points representing postcodes, and postcodes are actually regions. So this is where we want to bring a mapping option like MapBox into it, so that we can represent our own kind of custom boundaries and show this as a heat map instead of a point map. So to get started with MapBox, the best place to get this visual is from the Power BI app source. This is our custom visual kind of library. This is where all of the custom visuals are kind of published up. They've got the latest releases up there for most of them. So if we just find MapBox, you can see that it's not a certified custom visual. It will probably by nature never be certified because it is reading data in from an external source. So just note that if your organization currently limits custom visuals to only certified, just be aware of this.
An important note too, that it, like as you said, it pulls data in. It does not push data up, but it does pull in publicly accessible data to populate the additional layers that are in that visual.
Exactly, yeah. So it uses the MapBox API. We'll see that in a minute. We need to get an access token, so it definitely is reading data in. And so just by virtue of that, I don't think it can be certified.
Fair.
Cool. So you just add this into your report. I've already got a version in here, so I won't double add it. And then what we can do is I'm just going to convert this map into a MapBox visual. So I've just selected the map here, and we can just click on this MapBox visual. And you can see that we've encountered our first hurdle. So it won't even render a map until we get a free MapBox access token.
I like that there are little images. I just like the images in there. There are also broken images.
Yeah, no, exactly. So it doesn't look very friendly. It looks a bit scary. And this would put a lot of people off, I think. But it isn't too tricky to get a free MapBox access token. All you have to do is go onto MapBox. So go up here. go onto MapBox, click on this Start Mapping for free. So I've already got an account, so I'm not going to set it up. But literally, it takes about 30 seconds. I think all it needs is an email address and a password, and it is completely free. So once you've set up your MapBox account, then what you need to do is log in. Your first screen you'll get to is your account, and you'll have a default token here. So this is just an API token. This allows your Power BI visual to talk to your MapBox account. So I'm just going to copy my default public token in. You can also create, I think, almost unlimited tokens for different projects. You can kind of lock it down there as well.
So there's been a couple of people, just as a quick thing about MapBox, a couple of people have been asking if there's like a search function where we can actually like search for addresses as or points of interest within a map. And it seems like some people are saying that ArcGIS and MapBox has that functionality. I thought they didn't, but I wanted to confirm that with you.
Yes, that's the geocoder. So we'll see when the map renders, we've got it on, and then we can search for different addresses and things like that.
That's actually super useful. I did not realize that was a feature of the map, so I just learned something right there.
Awesome. Cool. There's so many features in this map and also icon map, so it's no wonder people get lost. But the first step is just to copy your access token into your access token dialog here. And you can see that the map renders. So we've got our search option here if I want to search for my old address in Melbourne. Maybe I shouldn't tell everyone where I live. It's an apartment, so you won't know what number I'm in.
I do the same thing with mine.
Yeah. You can see like we've got this geocoder option here. So there's heaps of options. We can turn that off if you want a bit of a cleaner map. You can also turn off your MapBox control. Got a nice auto zoom feature as well, but you can choose to turn that on and off. So there's a lot of different options here. Some of the other ones we can change really easily right out of the box is the MapBox style. So don't have to have a light map. We can have an outdoors map. We also have an option of bringing in our own custom base map. So we could create our own custom style up in MapBox Studio. Again, this is for free. And just copy in the style URL here. So that allows you, the benefit of that is if you wanted to have kind of like a project boundary or an area of interest which you don't want to interact with but you want it there, then you can include this as well.
Where are this like so the style URLs, I'm assuming, is that fetching like JSON code or?
No, so if we go back up to MapBox account, we've got quite a few styles here. You just go into your studio and it's actually accessing one of these styles up here. So you can create your own custom styles. I've got a video of this on my blog channel as well, if anyone is keen to see how to create your own custom style. But if we have a look at this one, this is a kind of a funny infographic map. All you can do is click on this share and we can copy this. So we copy this and go back in to our MapBox. When are we in here?
I dropped your blog in the comments as well too.
Oh, awesome. Cool. So you can see it's kind of that easy. If you create a really nice custom base map, so you can create your own base maps pretty easily as well. This one looks pretty terrible on this map, so I might just change it. But it's kind of that easy. So it's nothing onerous, not too many kind of tricks involved.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see that we're still not there yet. We don't have our nice custom kind of polygons on this map, and we're not really that much further than just the basic point map at this stage. So what we want to do is not visualize a circle map like we're doing here. At the moment, we're visualizing a circle map. What we really want to do is visualize a choropleth map. So a choropleth map is just kind of think of it like a fancy name for kind of a polygon, like with some color behind it.
That's like the first time. Map. That's the first time I think I've actually seen that word before. Choropleth. It doesn't roll off the tongue super easily, does it?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, and that's another reason why some of these options are kind of a little bit abstract for people who aren't used to dealing in spatial
Hmm.
kind of data sets as well. So for the choropleth maps, what we need is not the longitude and latitude, but some sort of location field here. So this will be a linking field, kind of to bind the data between our custom spatial data set and the data in our Power BI report. So to actually make this visual render, what we need to do is go all the way down to the options under the choropleth settings. And if you're in the US, actually, you'll be very lucky. Out of the box, we have US postcodes. But for those of us in Australia, we need to create a custom tile set. So this is a shape or like a spatial file that we host online on MapBox, and we can read in different pieces of info. So to do that, if we go back into MapBox and click on tile sets, this is where we can upload a tile set. So a tile set is just kind of a spatial file which MapBox creates for different kind of zoom resolutions as well. So I've got a zipped up shape file here, just a very simple shape file of different polygons across Victoria. If I just press confirm, you can see that this is uploading here. And for people in Victoria, if you did want to find data, this is what I was referring to previously. This is data.vic. This is our kind of open data set. It has a ton of spatial data. So if we type in postcodes here, you can see that I probably would have got this from the postcode boundaries VicMap admin here. So you can just kind of download it from there.
I dropped the link in a little bit earlier, so they'll be able to go and explore that as well. But in general, like most states and countries I've found have usually been pretty good about sharing a lot of information, especially related to any state parks or other stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, you just have to spend maybe 15 minutes searching, have a look online, and find that data as well. So you can see that this is finished processing. This has been uploaded. We click on this. Then we can see what our postcodes look like. So all I've done here is upload a spatial file onto MapBox Studio as a tile set, and we can see it rendered here. And this is where we can get those 3 pieces of info that Power BI needs. So the first is its tile set ID. So I just clicked on share and use, and we can just copy this. So if we copy this, go back into, which one was it? This one. And down here, we've got the vector tile URL. So this is where we want to copy it. But just to keep us on our toes, we have to keep this MapBox extension here. So MapBox ... and paste it in there. And you can see this is a good sign. It's zooming into the correct location. Sometimes it is a bit sticky if we just go out a page and back. Should go back in. Cool. So that's looking good. So the next piece of info we need is our source layer name. So if we go back onto MapBox Studio, it's copying this piece of info here. So just make sure we get it all. This one's a bit long. So triple click, that should be good. And we'll paste it in here. Awesome, still looks good. And the last feature is the vector property layer name. So this is the property which is in your spatial file attribute table. Here it's my postcode, which is identical. It's the data we want to bind to that data in our Power BI report, which we brought into the location field. So here now, if we're lucky, perfect. You can see that we've got our custom tile sets loaded for these different postcodes across Victoria. So we can interact with this using different kind of slices here. We've got that lasso select on this map as well, so we can select different kind of postcodes of interest, and the different visuals will update. So just quickly, a couple of formatting options. We can change these data colors because at the moment, just clear that selection. You can see that they don't really stand out too much. So I'm going to do like just kind of a traffic light color ramp here to visualize kind of the low to high scores.
Okay,
And we
that's
can
nice.
change those score ranges as well. Yeah, so you can turn on kind of diverging here, and we'll make it minimum for our center value and our maximum here as well. So you can do like a little bit of formatting here, not too much, but you can see you can make a pretty nice looking map without too much trouble. And all of these polygons, these can be your custom polygons that you can include within your map. So you can do a couple of other...
I had one thing I just wanted to point out. Ajit just mentioned that apparently he's had some issues with a large set of custom polygons in a MapBox, and I guess he had actually reached out, and there is a confirmed bug that's getting worked on with this. So it seems like there might be a slight upper limit in terms of performance when it comes to the number of polygons being rendered on the screen.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's a few performance issues I've run into as well. Another one is if you have very high resolution spatial files. So what I mean by that is lots of vertices on each of these polygons. MapBox automatically detects what zoom increment to display these at. So for some instances, you have to zoom right in, otherwise it won't display. So I recommend using a tool like MapShaper to simplify your polygons really quickly before you load them up. But yeah, do be aware there are a couple of bugs, and I'm not sure if the MapBox team are supporting this visual too much moving forward. I don't think it's been updated in maybe like a year and a half. So just bear that in mind. Like with all custom visuals, you're relying on someone else to maintain and update it, and it may have a few little bugs in it as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Especially
but
when
on the whole, I think it's...
I was going to say, especially when it's provided quote unquote free, versus something that's charged with any subscription, because there's a certain extent of what is the business impact and profitability of those. So I've had a few that I've gone the way of the long text viewer that used to be around. That was one of my favorite visuals for a while. That eventually disappeared out of the Microsoft store.
Oh no, yeah, there's been a couple of those, and you just have to always use it with a little bit of caution. Put caveats if you're working as a consultant in any proposals that they're not supported. But they are amazing. They open up so much potential, especially when it comes to mapping. So don't feel scared to use it. Just be aware of the risks.
Exactly, and just make sure you're transparent with the clients that this is a custom visual, and that it comes with its own caveats.
Yeah, no, definitely. So one thing that MapBox can't do is we can't display on the same map, to my knowledge, points, lines, and polygons all at the same layer. And that might seem a little bit like a bit kind of bizarre to some people. It's like, oh, why would we even want that on the same map? But in the environmental industry, that's kind of a staple. We really do want to display things like catchments or watercourse boundaries as polygons. We want to display rivers and pipes as lines, and we want to display points, so things like groundwater pumps or reservoirs or locations of interest. So that brings me on to my the next visual I want to do kind of a deep dive on, and this is the icon map. So the icon map is an amazing visual. It allows you to plot points, lines, and polygons all on the same map. It was a bit daunting when I went to use it the first time. I think Mim on Twitter had been going on about it for ages. So I was like, okay, I really have to try this map. And it did take me probably half a day just kind of exploring all the options. I had to hit up James Dales, who's the author of it, just to get a few tips on it. So it was a little bit tricky, but now I love it. It's hands down my favorite map in Power BI.
I've seen some cool options where people have actually shown like flight patterns and everything, and the lines are all popping around where the planes are flying. Like it seems, again, like I've seen a lot of people talk about it on Twitter, and I've seen you and James and other people post really interesting uses of it, but it seems to be extremely customizable for a lot of different types of data.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, so this is James's dedicated website, iconmap.com. This has a lot of kind of examples. He's got examples of his kind of flight paths and different applications here, but it's also where you go to download the latest version. So James is updating this pretty regularly. He's got a new update coming, I think, in the next couple of weeks, which is going to be really exciting. Lots of options there, which he's incorporating into it. But yeah, definitely go to download the custom visual here. Don't try and add it from App Source like we did with the MapBox, because it's a really outdated version there. So definitely recommend going here. And once you've downloaded it, to add it into your Power BI report, what you do is you click on the 3 ellipses. This time you want to import a visual from a file. So you will get a warning pop up, just making sure that you know that this is from an actual source. So here you can see we can update our visual if you wanted to override it. And then you'll see icon map is added into your report page just down here. And if we launch icon map, can put it up here. What I want to do in this example is I want to create a map of different places of interest across Victoria. So we've got forests, lakes, reservoirs, but also combine it with water corporations and waterways as well. So I've just launched the map here. I'm going to start by creating a really simple map, just a point map of my points of interest. So these forests and lakes and reservoirs. So I can do that by bringing in my latitude and longitude of these different points. What we do need, so you can see we have a ton of options here that we could put in. We just need to fill in the required fields as well. So this category is a unique kind of code or index or name, how we are kind of aggregating the data up. So in my case, I've got an index I'm going to bring in here. And the last field we need is a size option. So even if we don't want to use size as a feature, so I don't really want to use size as a feature in this map, it is still required for it to render. So I'm just going to put something simple like count of index, because I know that I only ever have my index represented once.
Okay.
So you can see very quickly we have a very basic looking map here.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too special. In my opinion, it probably looks a bit worse than just the standard map. But we can make it look really cool. We have a look here. We've got just a simple DAX expression to assign different image URLs to my different kind of waterway types. So here all I'm doing is a switch true. If my selected water resource asset type is reservoir, let's display a water drop icon. If it's forest, let's display this one. So this is where icon map gets its name, because we are able to represent not only points as circles, but as icons. So just bring this image in here, and you can see it displays some really tiny little icons. So that's where we have to go over into the formatting options. Let's fix up some of the formatting now. So that's under the data map objects. I'm just going to make my minimum size maybe 25, just so we can display it a little bit clearer. And what we can do here is it also integrates really nicely with tools like MapBox. So we could bring in kind of a custom background that we've created in MapBox, or we could bring in one of their out-of-the-box ones. So I quite like this outdoors map style. But you'll notice it's not rendering because we do need to have an access token. So if we go on, lucky we've already set up our MapBox account because
it does use the same token that MapBox would. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. So if you're used to using MapBox to jump to icon map, it's not too big. So we can still take advantage of any custom base maps that you've created. Your access token still works. Like with MapBox, when you're creating the visual, it's a little bit kind of sticky. It kind of, if you're finding the map's not rendering properly, just go to another page and come back again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen that with this. I've seen that sometimes with other custom visuals. Honestly, even native ones, where it caches the look of it a little bit, and it has to just be refreshed essentially.
Yeah, definitely. So my trick, it's like the turn it on and off again. Just go to a new page, come back, it kind of refreshes everything. That works
Exactly.
about 50% of the time. But now you can see that we've got a pretty nice looking map here. Maybe I'll just change it so it's maybe a light background just so these stand out a bit more. And you can see that we've got different locations across Victoria now represented as icons, which is pretty cool. We can't do that with other maps. But really, it doesn't solve our challenge. We want to represent polygons and points on the same map as well. So if we have a look here, I might just show you what this file looks behind the scenes in the data view. You can see that we don't just have longitude and latitudes. We only have those for a handful of these points. Our other elements of this data file, these are represented as WKT. So WKT, that stands for well-known text. And this is just a format where we can kind of write spatial files as a collection of connected coordinate pairs. So you can see we've got a ton of data in here, but really all this is doing is drawing a polygon. And what this means is MapBox, it uses WKT, so we can actually render our visuals based on data which we've imported locally into Power BI rather than reading a third-party tool like MapBox. So to get this, oh sorry, was there?
No, I was just so like instead of having to fetch the data online, it could just pull it directly from within inside the report.
Yeah, and this opens up so many opportunities, especially if people have kind of restrictions for hosting their data on external sites like MapBox, where we have to host it to create a custom tile set. But also if your data is being updated really regularly. So we've used this map on a recent project we're currently working on to visualize kind of vessel locations of different boats. But also to dynamically plot their movements as kind of paths and render kind of arrows as well to show the path direction. And this is reading in real-time data from an API, like with 6-minute increments. So we've got direct query reading on it and things like that, and it just kind of works. So no, it's a really cool visual. If you can bring the data in from external sources, it opens up a whole ton of extra possibilities as well. But then looking at this, at the dialogue, it's not really clear where do we bring this data in, because you can see the second option down here. We've got an option for icon URL, WKT, and SVG. We've already got our icon URL in here. So this is where it gets a little bit confusing because there's a lot of overlapping options in the icon map. So this field actually accepts both icon URLs and WKT, or an SVG if you want that to be your image. So what icon map does is it's clever enough to know if something has a longitude and latitude associated with it, then use the icon. Otherwise, use the WKT.
I had a quick question. Somebody just wanted to know where did you get the WKT data from?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. You can create it. So using a tool like QGIS, what you can do is you can just right-click, export, save this feature as, and instead of saving it as a shapefile, you could just save it as a CSV file and make sure that the geometry is set as WKT. So it is just kind of like another spatial conversion. So if we just save a test here and press OK.
QGIS. I'm going to get a link for that.
Yeah, so QGIS, it's a free mapping software. So it's open source. So it's really cool if you, like us, run our own company and don't want to pay for a very expensive ArcGIS license. But it just has lots of kind of possibilities. So you can see that it's generated at here. It is a very lengthy kind of string. What I'd recommend if you are creating it, just to snap points to grid, that reduces the resolution to 4 decimal points before you create your WKT, or simplify it as well. So a couple of things to keep in mind. But yeah, it's just a file format type. So there'll probably be online converters as well.
Perfect.
And so once you have your WKT, we've just updated our switch statement here to include that as an option. We can drag in this measure here instead. And this time you can see that it's rendering now the polygons as well as these points. So it's not looking very pretty yet. We've got a ton of formatting options down here, so we can bring in options to conditionally format the fill color. So we'll bring in a fill color and also add an outline. And you can see that it's looking quite nice. Like we've got a map, we can interact with it. You can see the visuals changing based on different water corps that we select as well. We don't have lines on this map. We're just using kind of pseudo lines with buffered polygons, but it's kind of the same thing. And one more cool feature I'll just quickly show you of this map. I love report page tooltips. So we've set up a report page tooltip here. Just to provide additional context for this map, we can include report page tooltips as well. So if we go down here, turn on report page, I'll make it my map report page. So you can see when we hover over these different water corporations, the different elements here, that they all update. So this is a feature that a lot of other custom visuals don't have. The visual developer has to add it in themselves. So MapBox doesn't support the report page tooltips.
And that's one of the caveats that you have to tell people as well, is like most of the time for the majority of new features that get added, or a good portion of them, they do open the API essentially for custom visuals, usually pretty soon after, to allow them to access that feature. But that visual has to get updated to that. So if it hasn't been updated in a year and a new feature comes out, that there's a chance that that may or may not ever be available for that. So.
Definitely. And that's why I'd recommend using the icon map. I know that James Dales is really active updating this map. So like late last year, the option for having conditional formatting options natively in custom visuals got released. So that's why he's doing a massive overhaul. All of these formatting options here, it's quite daunting. There's a ton of them. I understand that he's replacing them, a lot of them, with conditional formatting options to make it a lot more intuitive. And one which I'm really excited about, this just got announced on Twitter literally earlier this week, is regarding the background layers. So at the moment, you can only have, you have to choose one background layer to have per map. And I understand this is the same for any mapping options in Power BI. But sometimes we want to have our background map change over time. So for example, like we use a lot of work on studies which have high resolution aerial drone footage to show land use changes and things like that over a time period. We want to push that to the base layer. We don't want to be interacting with it, but we do want an option to be able to display these changes through time in the base map. So he's making this option a conditional formatted option. So we could have a ton of MapBox styles that we create with a time variable or a year, and then we can cycle through those over time. So it makes it so much more kind of accessible to use all that data.
Agreed.
So that one I'm very excited about. But that was just a very quick kind of overview of some of the cool mapping options in Power BI. So focusing on Icon Map and MapBox, they're my two favorites. But if anyone did have any questions on any of the other maps, please let me know. I have used quite a lot of them.
Seeing if there's any other questions. Let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of just good chatter on the use cases for this, and of course, the appreciation of James Dale for the icon map. I guess the question to you is, considering MapBox versus the icon map, is there any feature in MapBox specifically that would have you use that over the icon map?
Yeah, so I love MapBox as a map to impress people. So people who aren't really used to Power BI, it has the auto zoom. The auto zoom is super slick. So I'll show you an example up here. We've got, this one is always kind of really cool. So if we go out and then go back in. This is also MapBox has 3D options, whereas Icon Map doesn't. So here we're using MapBox, a 3D extrusion map. This is just adding a size field in. And you can see that it looks super impressive because it does that nice auto zoom in. You can kind of change the pitch and perspective. And so if you are looking to kind of impress people, if you do have 3D data like this, then that's kind of cool. Icon Map, it has a ton of functionality, but it's not as slick as MapBox. MapBox feels like a much more kind of corporate mapping tool. It has a really nice look and feel, I think. So if I am looking just to do a simple map, like a choropleth map or something like that, and I didn't want to go to the effort of creating the WKT, making sure it all renders, things like that, I would use MapBox. But if you want to combine data together, then yeah.
So I just Googled this quickly, but Laura was asking, does anyone use the Google Maps visual? I didn't know Power BI had a Google Maps custom visual, but apparently it exists.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. It's Dynamica Labs. It does look like additional purchases may be required, but it is something that actually renders regular Google Maps, allows Street View, and a bunch of other stuff. So I think we both just learned something new.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Oh, cool. That's what I love about these things. Like always, if I don't know the answer at like a conference, I'll always throw to the audience because there's a ton of people out there all using different tools. And no, that's so cool. I'm going to go look that up after. Thank you, Laura.
Looking at the reviews, the earliest one is April 12th. So I think it's only been out for maybe 4 to 6 weeks.
Wow. Ooh, hot off the press. That's cool.
Yeah, Alice is like, all right, I know what I'm going to do this weekend now. I have a new map to play with.
Yeah, you ruined my weekend. That's funny.
But yeah, this is awesome. And I think just the two standouts, of course, is just MapBox and Icon Map when it comes to actually doing anything advanced. The out-of-the-box ones for shape, filled, and even Azure works pretty well. But it's a good option out there when you want to be able to use advanced features, but also not have to go the ArcGIS route. And obviously, it's a very expensive subscription to use a lot of the advanced features that come with that. So,
but also with ArcGIS, you can plot your own points, but you can't interact with any custom polygons. So if you want to interact with custom polygons, my understanding is the current level of Esri, it doesn't support that. You can tap into all of your ArcGIS Online and have those as base maps if you have the add-on. But you still can't interact with the polygons.
It's another good point too. So like, would be nice if Microsoft was to integrate, the James icon map as a custom but still, native visual that's just available in the selection. Like ArcGIS, just is an option from the visuals menu, and it would be nice to see a couple of other things start to percolate in there from the custom visuals ecosystem.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
But otherwise, I think this is great. Our peak concurrent, as I was tracking it, I think went up to about 48. We're now down to about 28 again, but we had quite a few people turning in today. Maps, I think, are one of those things that are fairly universal. Even if you don't have data that necessarily directly applies to it, it's still one of those like, oh, this is a great tool set to know of what's available out there. And I know I did a blog 4 years ago probably that just talked about the different types of maps, but there's so many options out there, and as we learned today, new ones are coming out clearly on a monthly and yearly basis.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's a lot of different options out there these days. Just want to say a big shout out and thanks again to James Sales for the Icon Map and all the other custom visual developers who are really putting in their kind of heart and soul into doing this stuff, majority for free for the community. So no, it's awesome. It really opens up a ton of new potential and opportunities for Power BI. And thanks everyone for dialing in. It's so nice to kind of connect with people virtually while we can. But if there were any questions, if you had any follow-up questions, then feel free to follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn or send an email as well.
Perfect. Yep. And I really appreciate you coming on and talking about this stuff. Like with all my other guests, this has been a pleasure, and I'd love to have you on again at some point. And I'm sure there's other stuff down the road, even as like Azure Maps or other things start to cover, that we'll have plenty of other things to talk about. But otherwise, is there anything else you you want to say to the audience, or any links that you want me to share with them before we sign off?
Oh no, I think that's it. I guess just one more thing is myself and Christian, we run the Power BI for Enviro's Meetup group. So we meet every month. If there are other people out there who want to see cool applications of environmental data, we get speakers from all across the industry to present and share their case studies, tips and tricks. So we would love you to join. Also on our blog, we have all the previous recordings, including we did a deep dive on maps, and we had a address from the City of Melbourne going into the MapBox API. If anyone is keen to do that, we have that on video recording. So that was intense. That was awesome. And going into Cardo as well. So we did that, as well as the other ones.
Where would they find out about your meetup? Is it the events page on your website?
Yeah, that's kind of out of date, but if you go into Power BI for Enviros, so this is the meetup. It's just a virtual meetup. It's probably on our events page as well, but this is where to go if you did want to join. So we'll have our next session at the probably end of May.
Oh, here we go. I found it. So I will paste that over into the perfect. In the chat. All right.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
But thank you so much, Reid. It's been amazing to catch up with you again. And
yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully we can see each other or meet each other in person in the not too distant future once all this craziness dies down.
Exactly. Enjoy your Saturday morning. Yeah.
Yes, bright and early. Yep.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Enjoy Saturday morning. Everybody, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you all next week.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships as well. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on social media to help pass on this awesome content and to help the channel grow. So until next time.